it's jarring.
Right.
Right? I mean, we're talking about somebody who set up a sniper's post to try to kill the former president of the United States, and the segue is amidst.
And you would never see the inverse segue, which would be a package about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and then a segue into, I don't know, 2, 5, 10, 20 minutes straight of Democrats attacking Donald Trump using heated rhetoric, telling supporters to don't let them in restaurants, create a crowd anytime you see them in public, shame these people by name.
They're a threat to your country. They're a threat to democracy.
I mean, it would take us literally an afternoon. We could produce 20 minutes of that content like that.
In his own words, where he said, these people have said that I am a threat to democracy, as this rhetoric to gin up, to lead to violence against me. And then this second attempted assassin has a tweet where he says Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. The programming has worked.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Friday program. I am Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, back in action, John Ashbrook, left to right across your radio dial. Fellas, we're a little bit punchy here. It comes to this time of year. A lot going on.
Yeah.
I think that Captain Wolf had to turn the mics off 3 or 4 times because of the content of our conversation pre-broadcast, so I hope this goes well.
We're having a pretty good time. I mean, I know Duncan literally just got here. He was stranded overnight.
Yes.
At an airport.
Yeah, I was traveling.
Fighting for the cause.
Yeah.
But he's here.
Here he is.
Yeah, my bags didn't make a connection, and neither did I. And then they told me it would take, an hour or an hour and a half to retrieve my luggage so I could spend the evening at the airport hotel. And I was just like, F it. I'll sleep in my clothes.
Just load the next plane.
Be like, it's already this bad. Can't get any worse.
And your plane got struck by lightning?
Yeah.
And you saw it happen.
Mm-hmm. On the wing. as the pilot's announcing, we have horrific wind shear. We don't know if we'll make this landing, and we're a little low on fuel, so we might have to go to a different airport. Anyway, long story short.
He straight up said that?
Yeah. He straight up said that.
What was the reaction inside the plane?
Everyone was so tired at that point because we'd been circling for almost an hour. The people were like, all right, give it a try. All right, one more try. Let's see if we can land this bird.
Stewardess, grab your parachute. Let's lighten this load. Don't you care about the airline?
Yeah. So anyway, it all worked out.
Well, it's great. Look, we have a lot to cover that basically nobody else is covering, which is an obvious second assassination attempt of former President Trump. Guys, I don't even know where to begin with this stuff anymore. I mean, it feels like the broken brains everywhere, the left sort of contributing to this just bizarre sort of dynamic. And now you see it play out in mainstream media where like I was watching football yesterday. I learned of this, honestly. I stay about as plugged in as anybody, but I learned of all of this from my buddy's text chain.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like this is a critically serious event that had it happened to Kamala Harris, there'd be a Warren Commission.
Yeah.
And now we're acting as though this is like, in other news.
Yeah, and even worse than that, I feel like, Holmes, it's like when things happen to Donald Trump, it's the one time where liberals are super comfortable victim blaming.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. Well,
Like
at least rationalizing why somebody who is a would-be assassin of a former president of the United States could have come to the conclusions.
How short was Donald Trump's skirt? Like it's that sort of level stuff. It's incredible. I know we got a lot of it here. I mean, this is going to be a great episode.
We got a lot to get to. Let's just level set about what we've got from the very beginning from NBC News. Would-be assassin stopped moments before an attempt on Trump's life outside of the West Palm Beach golf course. If we could put up graphic 1, please. This is the image of the rifle at the fence outside of Trump's golf course, where this individual, Ryan Wesley Routh, 58-year-old gentleman who's now been identified and taken into custody, allegedly set up as a sort of an assassin's nest.
Yeah.
On the golf course that Donald Trump was playing. He had done what turns out seems like subsequent coverage has found to be a lot of research about where you could get sort of straight line views of Donald Trump. That is where he set up. Fortunately, the Secret Service in this case found him before he found the former president.
Yeah, and thank God. And I mean, if we put the graphic back up, Lee Wolf, United States Marine Corps, pointed out to us that this is more than just backpacks up against a fence. He literally pulled armor plating out of body armor, and he placed them against the fence so that he could withstand gunfire from the Secret Service. He has his GoPro, ostensibly, so he could live stream it. The guy is sick, absolutely sick, and he's a lunatic leftist, and we saw pictures of him with the Harris Walls bumper sticker on his car. He was over in Ukraine. He's a mercenary. He's getting passports for people for the Ukrainian war, from Afghanistan, all kinds of bizarre
all of the social
links.
media stuff, right? I mean, none of this stuff has been run to ground in terms of what it is that he had done. I mean, he could be a psychopath that is masquerading as one thing and not the other. I mean, we've known, like, look, mental health is a real issue. So we don't know what it is that he's done. But according to his social media profile and everything that people have uncovered, everything you said is the way that this guy has presented his life.
And one thing I think is critical to point out is, whenever you have an attack happen, you see mainstream journalists spring to try to find, like, how is this guy in any way right-leaning? So then they can say, oh, inspired by Trump or this is stochastic terrorism or some bullshit like that. But here you have an instance where this is confirmed that this individual who tried to assassinate President Trump donated to Democrats 20 times, registered as a Democrat, has voted in a Democrat primary, has a Biden-Harris bumper sticker on their truck, and then you have the media say, unclear what their politics were.
Unclear what his motivations in politics were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to get into all that. Just as a matter of fact, Trump was playing a round of golf near his Mar-a-Lago home when Secret Service agent spotted a rifle with a scope in the bushes outside of the course. Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw said at a news conference the Secret Service opened fire on the man who was able to get away fleeing in a black Nissan. This is according to NBC News. As shots rang out, it was unclear whether the person was able to take a shot at the agents. Rafael Barros, a special agent in charge of Secret Service's Miami field office, said a nearby witness took a picture of the car and told authorities, Bradshaw said, helping to lead to the arrest. Man was taken into custody, and he is now in custody. I understand that late Monday he was arraigned and appeared in court. This is just, it's sort of unbelievable at some level that we're dealing with this twice in a presidential election cycle. That it almost didn't seem to make the news.
Yeah.
Right? I was talking to somebody, one of my buddies the other day, and they're like, dude, how is it that nobody is talking? This is right before the debate. How is it that nobody is talking about the fact that they tried to kill Donald Trump 60 days ago, less than 60 days ago? And I was like, dude, that's a really good question, because every single attempt that we've had this high think of it, right? The images are sort of in your head about the Reagan assassination attempt, the RFK assassination, the JFK assassination. I mean, there's images associated with all of these things, obvious image associated with the Donald Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, but it seems to be only orbiting in a conservative world. Like it's
because our country used to be bigger than our politics, and I think the way that the liberal media has broken the brains of half of this country, I think there are huge swaths of the electorate who would totally be comfortable with an assassin taking out Donald Trump.
That is sick to think about.
That they believe that he's an existential threat to democracy, that this would be the last election if he becomes president again. And I mean, like, you saw the left-wing lunatics cracking jokes on Twitter about it. I mean,
yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
It's sick stuff, and these people really do believe it.
They really do believe it. There's no question about it. That's a very, very good take. I think very apropos. The media is already trying to bury this story, as we said. And we're going to get to all of that in great specificity right after this first ad break.
Cyber attacks are on the rise, with corporate megastores falling victim to data breaches that expose your private information. Now these same megastores are lobbying D.C. politicians to pass the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill will leave you even more vulnerable to credit card cyber attacks, while Walmart and Target pocket billions in additional profit. Don't let them get away with it. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
So listen, we're going to show you exactly how it is that the media is sort of downplaying this stuff. And it takes us kind of a special eye because it's subtle at first. And then it becomes obvious as nobody's talking about things, as the case with Butler, PA. And we did this a little bit last week with the media and ABC and how they handled the debate, which, by the way, thank you for downloading that. A lot of kind comments. Really appreciate. It took a lot of work to go through that whole transcript, but that's what we do here at Ruthless. We try to provide you a little bit of something. So like and subscribe if that's the kind of content you're into. We're about to get into another level of that with just how this thing has been covered by the media. Let's start with clip one, NBC's Lester Holt.
Today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail itself. Mr. Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio. This weekend, there were new bomb threats in that town. Our Maggie Vespa is in Columbus, Ohio, with more.
Okay, so you see what they've done, right?
Real
I mean, there was a segment that we didn't play that was about the assassination attempt, but the segue is written as a way, it's a permission structure for people to understand that, oh, well, maybe they've brought this on themselves.
Yep. Maybe Donald Trump deserves this.
Yeah. Oh, it's increased rhetoric by them. Let's talk about this little Springfield town of which we have a lot of questions about, and indicate that somehow that J.D. Vance, of all people, who represents the state of Ohio, is somehow responsible for increased violent threats there. It's jarring.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about somebody who set up a sniper's post to try to kill the former president of the United States, and the segue is amidst.
And you would never see the inverse segue, which would be a package about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and then a segue into, 2, 5, 10, 20 minutes straight of Democrats attacking Donald Trump, using heated rhetoric, telling supporters to don't let them in restaurants, create a crowd anytime you see them in public, shame these people by name.
They're a threat to your country. They're a threat to democracy.
I mean, it would take us literally an afternoon. We could produce 20 minutes of that content like that.
It's a perfect segue, and I want to get back to you, Smug, but it's a perfect segue to clip 2, because if you remember during the debate, this was brought up. Can we go to clip 2, please, Spagats?
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
we do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Oh, cut him off.
Yeah. They're like, we can't talk about that.
A lot to get to. We can't talk about you taking a bullet. Can't do that.
No, Anchorman has a show.
So it's shocking that they didn't let him talk about this seismic event, let alone how is there not a question pointedly asking about the assassination to even start the thing? there was an attempted assassination. How do you not even cover that?
This is a very good point, because in any other election cycle that we have seen in my lifetime, that would be the seismic news event of the 4-year election cycle. Mm-hmm. It would be the thing of which all questions are asked out of. It was something that Donald Trump, the victim of a shooting, had to raise himself, and was immediately saying, well, we've got a lot to get to.
We've got a lot to get to.
Like me questioning your credentials on immigration, for example. I mean, that is, it's an amazing change that these guys have just done under the noses of the American people. They still have millions of people watching it.
And I think what we're seeing in the aftermath of this second assassination attempt is exactly what the left has been working towards for some time. They've created this structure where anything conservatives say, oh, it's stochastic terrorism, words are violence to when it's coming from conservatives, right? Anything that disagrees with their worldview, it's dangerous. Like you always see, they'll be like, these things conservatives are saying, people are going to die. This is going to hurt people the way that conservatives are speaking. But when they have actual violence from their side, oh, it's like, a riot is the voice of the unheard.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the CDC says that rioting is actually not a way that you could pass COVID. Like, they've created a structure where violence from them is this is an expression of people who've been trampled upon, whereas words from conservatives are violence and dangerous, and they should be, that's hate speech, and it shouldn't be allowed. They don't want conservatives to even be allowed to speak. So let alone have to suffer from violence on our side, where Donald Trump, like he says, took a bullet to the head.
And to take that to its logical conclusion, Smug, like if our words are violence, then what real violence isn't justified by them?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And that's the scary thing. And if maybe they let Donald Trump complete his sentence on stage about being shot in the head, it would have been a good moment for Kamala Harris to say, I condemn all political violence, and people need to take a beat and recognize that we're a country before we're a political party. Would have been a great moment. There were 60 million people watching. But I think in their heart of hearts, people on the left do want us to be scared.
Exactly.
And they do think it's actually justified.
It's just so scary.
And like in his own words, where he said, these people have said that I'm a threat to democracy, as this rhetoric to gin up, to lead to violence against me. And then this second attempted assassin has a tweet where he says Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. The programming has worked.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to ignore what has been going on in the left and how it has manifested itself in crazy people doing crazy things.
Yeah.
Right? This is what the left and the media have accused Republicans, anybody who believes in Second Amendment rights, of for years. Any sort of violent action taken anywhere in this country has been associated closely with what it is that Republicans have had to say, and blamed it essentially tangentially on Republicans. Except this is what's happening. And I don't think I've gone a day, certainly not a week, where there isn't a Republican leader somewhere in our party who is saying, remember, violence is not the answer. Remember, violence is not what we do here. Mm-hmm. We vote, we do whatever. Violence. You don't ever hear that out of the left. You just don't ever hear. Isn't it about time, after the second assassination attempt, that we get a Democrat on stage speaking to camera? I mean, look, Joe Biden, they can wheel his old ass out for every shitty thing that the Biden administration has done and have him read a teleprompter terribly for 7 to 10 minutes about whatever. Isn't this one of those moments? Wouldn't you say that, look, his name's not on the ballot. His name is not on the ballot. He does not have...
If he's good for anything, he should be good for that.
It should be doing your best, your level best, as the elected president of the United States, to try to cool things down a little bit. Try to say, like, look, folks, this is crazy. We're not doing this kind of stuff. We're going to win an election, yada, yada. He can put all the shit in there that he wants. But ultimately, they didn't.
And this is why, is because they know the media isn't going to hold them accountable because they're on the same team.
Right. Right. And it's not just Joe Biden.
Can you imagine the calls? Can you imagine the calls if a Republican president and a Democratic nominee had not one, but 2 assassination attempts in the effort to try to oust them from office, and there was a Republican president who didn't take to camera?
But not just Biden. Where was Kamala last night? To camera. I mean, there are iPhones in existence in her campaign.
She can't do it.
Just write her a script that says, please do not shoot my opponent. It's all she has to say. It's very, very simple. But they won't do it.
No.
They entertain this lunacy.
Of course.
Do you know why they won't do it? Let's look at clip 3 here. This is MSNBC.
Say, let's take this down. We do not know, again, the source of any gunshot or gunshots. We don't know who's responsible for this. The whole thing has yet to be 100% confirmed from start to finish how this all played out. But do you expect to hear anything from the Trump campaign about toning down the rhetoric, toning down the violence, or would that be atypical of the former president?
Well, Alex, remember back to the assassination attempt on President Trump's life and how, there was talk of a new tone, and then the Republican convention was, by Trumpian standards, muted. And it did seem like he was, just trying to take it down a few notches. But then by the end of his convention speech, we were kind of back to where we started.
It's just unbelievable.
It's on Trump?
Yeah.
He's got to take the bullets and justify it.
I mean, they're stopping just one phrase short of what they believe, and that is he deserved it. I mean, that's it. That's what that whole package is designed to do. Well, he deserves it.
That's the thing. They're like, do you think as a result of someone trying to kill him again, Trump is going to tone down his speech? It's like they're just saying straight up, they're like, stop making our side try to kill you. That's what they're saying. Stop making our side try to kill you. Can't you just knock it off?
They talk a lot about the fragility of democracy.
Yeah.
Right? And their whole construct that they build is all around January 6th. Or all about post-election 2020. And there are, like all good lies, there are elements of truth within it. But then ultimately, if you're going to have fragility in elections and democracy, it's when you fear speaking out against an incumbent regime is going to result in the assassination of the person who puts their name on the ballot.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what it is. Mm-hmm. And the idea that this is not, if you're committed to democracy, American democracy, the way we've known it, wouldn't this be the first thing? Mm. I mean, that's basically the underlying thematic of their entire campaign. This doesn't fit in that.
This is what I fundamentally don't understand why Kamala hasn't made a statement. It's so easy. She doesn't even have, it's not even a Sister Souljah moment. She doesn't have to go after her own. All she has to do is say, don't shoot my opponent, please. This is not good for America.
What a low bar.
Do you know
Very
why,
low.
Do you know why I think that she won't? Not just she's terrible when put in front of a camera. She can't, because the whole central theme of the Democrats today, what they're running on is, they have no ideology that they agree on. There's nothing they want to accomplish. There's nothing that they can be proud of having accomplished these past 4 years. You think they can talk about their record? Mm-mm. Their only argument is saying Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Donald Trump is an existential threat. So by saying don't shoot him, it's an admission that you were full of shit.
Right.
That you have nothing to run on.
Yeah.
That's why they can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, and we learned that the first time. I can't believe I'm saying it. It just sounds.
The first time
they tried to kill him. The first time they tried to kill him, and every Democrat who put out a statement saying thoughts and prayers with Donald Trump as he recovers from this attempted assassin's bullet, the replies were full of people being like, "Why are you sending thoughts and prayers? How about better aim?"
Yeah.
Because that's what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't give thoughts and prayers to somebody you call an existential threat to democracy unless you don't think democracy is important. So either you're lying or you're full of shit.
Yep.
And that's the reality.
God, it's the structure of the entire argument. You're totally right, fellas. Good. That's why you listen to the Ruthless Variety program. That's insightful stuff. Yeah. Well, listen, if you thought the mainstream media was bad, have a look at what Democrats are saying. We're going to get to all of that right after this.
Folks, let me tell you about my friends at Americans for Prosperity, America's largest grassroots organization. Americans for Prosperity is out there every day fighting for you. Their goal? Reignite the American dream. AFP's priorities are simple. Secure the border, end inflation, make energy more affordable. And AFP gets results the old-fashioned way through grassroots activism. They bring together like-minded conservatives, turning them into a grassroots army and defeating the left's terrible big government agenda in the states and in Washington. And that's where you come in. With the media, celebrities, and universities stacked against us, it's the grassroots that will help us win. So please find an Americans for Prosperity chapter in your state and get in the fight. Go to americansforprosperity.org.
All right, so these are truly trash individuals that you operate in the activist left. Mm-hmm. The kind that you were talking about in the previous segment, who are basically not only discouraging Democratic lawmakers for doing a humanic thing, like observing that
the decent thing.
Boy, we're glad that we didn't have an assassination of a former president. But they like kind of take it to different levels. Let's go to graphic 2. This is Rachel Vindman. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because she's a Vindman that is aligned with the one. Is this the?
I think her brother-in-law is running for Congress.
Her brother-in-law is running for Congress. Is it her husband?
Yeah, who was a whistleblower.
He was the whistleblower. So the whistleblower in the first impeachment trial of Donald Trump. And as we all know at this point, the whistleblowing, there was nothing that should have been whistleblown about it. It was the most sham impeachment trial of all time. And listen, I'm not like a Trump apologist for all of these things, but I'm just telling you, that was absolutely absurd that was an impeachment trial in the first place. And the entire thing hinged on this lady, her husband.
Yeah.
Right? Saying that he basically made improper weighing of American aid to Ukraine versus what they were doing to try to root out corruption.
Yeah. Turns out everything Donald Trump was suggesting was true.
Turns out it was all true. Can we put that back up? Okay, so no ears were harmed. Carry on with your Sunday afternoon.
That was her message.
Yeah.
It's just outrageous.
And then her reply, when people were like, "Are you like insane? Have you lost your mind to say something like this?" She doubled down and tripled down, and she was like, "I'm not going to apologize. I'm 100% right." The following day, she deleted it and apologized because they got the message out. She wants the whole side, like we were just saying, they can't exist. Their grift, all this crap that they push, cannot exist in a world where their supporters do not firmly believe that Donald Trump is Hitler.
Yeah.
You know, if you say, damn, I'm glad he wasn't murdered, your people are like, what? You were telling me he was Hitler 10 minutes ago.
And therein lies that dichotomy, Smug, right? Like the Democratic politicians know not to say the quiet part out loud, right? But when people like her say it, like they actually do represent, I think, the rank and file that have been brainwashed by the 100%. Democratic politicians who are just a little bit smarter to not say it.
Yeah.
But they all think it.
They all think it. And if somebody
disgusting.
says it in their company, they're like,
yeah,
head nod, slow head nod.
Yeah.
Right? So here's another one that's come to fame and fortune within the Democratic activist circles is the Mueller, she wrote. Graphic 3, please. Smug, you know, what's this deal with this account?
So this is another one of those like grifter influencer types that came up when Donald Trump was elected president, and they get invited now to a bunch of events by Biden and Harris at the White House.
The person who's the author of this account,
correct,
was invited to the Biden White House.
Yes,
for many events.
Yes.
Oh, my God. Okay, so if you create your own would-be assassins by failing to condemn political violence and then arm them with the weapons of war, you're not a victim. That's what she says.
So Trump gave him the Kalashnikov that was sitting up against the fence. Trump gave him the body armor and the GoPro.
And to start by saying, if you create your own would-be assassins.
Who Who could have guessed that somebody with the handle Mueller, she wrote, might not be a stable human being? I mean, you got to remember, like, flashback to like the Russia days. They did a dramatic reading of the Mueller report on Broadway. On Broadway. And I remember at the time talking about how insane these people were. Like, that should have been if we need any red flag laws, it's that. Like, if you start to get that invested in a special counsel that you put it on Broadway, like Baker Act.
Yeah. Listen,
Baker
pal,
Act.
I'm glad that you mentioned that they did it on Broadway. I'm glad that we've mentioned these lunatics who have tweeted about it. It doesn't stop with the lunatics. It doesn't stop with Broadway. It's in the Washington Post. Philip Bump, frequent contestant.
Bump. He was a number 1 seed, I think, this year.
Frequent contestant in Hack Madness had this, quote, Routh's intent in being at the golf course on Sunday and any motivations are still uncertain.
Come on.
As of writing.
Come on, dude.
Do people tend to shoot people they like? Is that something? Is that something that happens?
It's just a public service announcement. If you know the president or a former president is in town, don't go take a long scope rifle and point it anywhere in the vicinity of that person. I guess you could have a mistake about what you're doing of that sort of
we
thing.
We just may never know.
We'd never know.
His intent being at the golf course? He was looking for a tee time?
Yeah, it's not,
He's not like trying to get on.
He had a 5-iron there. He had body armor and a GoPro and a long scope rifle.
Oh my God, it's completely absurd. But look, you're right. The whole permission structure against the entirety of the Democratic message is contradictory here. It's why they can't get to the full condemnation of what should be condemned. And you think about all of the things that the media have done to Donald Trump everywhere through to try to make him an existential threat. And look, not everybody's got an IQ above 90. Not everybody's got an IQ. So there's like a lot of people who come along with this. But when you get somebody of authority that is sort of giving you that message, crazy people do crazy things. Let's look at clip 4 here.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
Great laugh line.
That gets cheers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I understand. Like, look, in 2018, you didn't envision assassination attempts, but the question itself is something that, look, you have some culpability over.
And also, there already existed the kind of atmosphere that you feel comfortable saying something like that.
Yeah. Oh, lots of laughs.
We had already gotten to that point where Kamala Harris was like, you know what? I bet no one here would have a problem if I said I would kill Donald Trump.
Yeah, it wasn't Ellen saying, would you kill him?
Would you kill Donald Trump?
Kamala
on her
raised
own.
that.
On her own came up with
She just asked, what would you do if you were in an elevator with him?
She was like, I would kill him. Right? Applause.
laughs.
Like,
laughs.
That's in 2018, they had already gotten to that point.
Yeah.
Like, in the 6 years since, think of how far they have pushed their supporters to go, where they have said the whole attack, he's a threat to democracy. He's an existential threat. In the wake of multiple assassinations, you had Representative Goldman from New York say, we got to take Trump out.
Oh,
They know that's the beating heart of their party, is a belief that at all costs, no matter what, you have to stop Trump. And if they were to take a single half step back, everyone would know that they're full of shit.
Well, look, the extremism is clear. If you have any question, we talked a lot about this a few weeks ago about how the moderating force within this campaign is the policy agenda that Donald Trump is talking about. It is truly in the center. What they're talking about is off the left-hand side of the map. I actually don't know of a Republican or Democratic nominee in my lifetime that has had a more center, right or center left policy platform as they campaign for president. You can make an argument for how Clinton governed after he lost a midterm election, and that was perhaps with Newt Gingrich a center-right thing. But nobody's ever campaigned for president more center of the country than Donald Trump is. They are off the left-hand side of the map. So they're trying to, I mean, look, the extremism is there. And if you had any question about that, have a look at 2 assassination attempts. Mm-hmm. That's extremism. That is what that looks like. That is what the Democratic Party has armored crazy people with throughout this country. And by the way, we don't even talk about the Steve Scalise thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, like nobody even knows. I bet like even you are listening, like, did you know that he was like a Bernie Sanders acolyte? Did you know that he was brainwashed off the left-hand side of the map to think that all Republicans were here to kill you?
But the last thing he said before going on that shooting rampage at that diamond was he asked, are those Republicans or Democrats?
Yeah.
And then he opened fire.
And that was the only thing he cared about.
Yeah.
So anyway, with that extremism in mind, our question of the day for all of you: will Democrats and their media allies be successful in burying yet another assassination attempt? Is this not going to be a part of the decision-making tree that Americans have about what party represents them or not? Are they going to bury this altogether? And I'd be very, very interested in your responses to it, because different communities have different things. It means different things to different people. I know from my standpoint, I'm looking at this and I'm like, my God, it's never been clearer to me. You know? So I'd be interested in all of your thoughts. We're going to get to our question of the day from last week, which is about the debate. We had some very fascinating answers, and I think many of your answers actually confirmed what it is that we're seeing in pollings. Well, first, we're going to talk about our sponsor for today's program, Z-Biotics, fellas.
One of our favorites.
Oh, my gosh, Z-Biotics. So for those of you who didn't watch our convention episodes, basically the only reason they went on was Z-Biotics.
Yeah.
Z-Biotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink that is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. And what it attempts to do is limit the effects of the next day.
Yeah.
After you have a good night.
Well, yeah, because when you drink alcohol and it breaks down, it becomes a toxic byproduct in your gut, and the enzymes in Z-Biotics negate that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the PhD scientists came out. They
smarter people than us.
They figured out how to deal with anything. All I know is in practice, you take one of these things.
We're avid users.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and that's why we always say there's no tomorrow without Z-Biotics today.
It's true.
You know, it's I mean, look, they've, like you said, it's a byproduct. It's not dehydration that's to blame. There's all the things that we've heard all through the years. There's a byproduct of these things. They've figured out how to reverse engineer all of that, and it works. I'm just telling you. I mean, look,
Yeah, so like
you would be done without it.
We've said many times that, you know, my liquor cabinet at home, I have like 3 cases of Z-Biotics sitting next to it. So I know, like, before I pour myself a single bourbon, I will have it, because, like, you know, Duncan said, it's not dehydration or anything. Like, we've all tried being like, oh, I went hard, I drank, so I'm going to drink 3 glasses of water before I go to sleep, and the next day you still feel terrible. You know, it doesn't do anything. So it's not that, but the proof is in the pudding. Like, the reason we were talking to everyone at the convention about it, I was literally handing out bottles.
Yeah, I know. People were so happy
to people at the convention.
We're like salespeople.
Yeah. And people coming back to our setup at the convention being like, thank you.
Yeah. They were like, do you have any more? I was like, no, I gave them all out.
Yeah.
Well, you know where to find them. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and feel your best tomorrow. And go to zbiotics.com/ruthless to learn about more and get 15% off your order when you use Ruthless at the checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. If you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund the money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/ruthless and use code RUTHLESS at checkout for 15% off. I couldn't be endorsing any product more than we are that one. That is first class. All right, so your YouTube comments. As always, as is typical with the audience here at the Ruthless Variety Program, you hammered it. And let's start the way we always do, with the voice.
And remember, if you would like us to read your comments, and we know that you have very good ones, like and subscribe if you wish to opine. This first one comes from Susan Schroeder. And Susan writes, "Thank you for this amazing debate review. Unfortunately, millions of debate watchers only get their facts, in scare quotes, from the third arm of the Democratic Party, the national media, and PBS. So these debates are the only time they can hear the truth. Your amazing and accurate analysis demonstrated how ABC and the Harris campaign were in cahoots. The debate was rigged, and Trump was ambushed. It's so important for we conservatives to text, email, and educate the world, including Democrats, the importance of listening to the Ruthless Podcast, which I do every chance I
Thank you,
get."
Susan.
Yeah, nice.
Very, very kind of you. Appreciate the listen. And I will say, fellas, I probably got as much or more traffic on that than anything we've done.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because we talked about this. You watched it and you were sort of despondent. It felt like it just didn't go well. And you're like, man, the stakes are really high for just a bad debate. And then the next morning I got up and we read the transcript together and we sort of looked at it and we're just astonished. We're like, well, we got to do an episode on this.
And you saw the media instantly tried pushing the message. They're like, well, if anyone complains about moderators, you know that they lost the debate. And that's why we broke it down.
Blaming
and
the
everyone
refs.
who heard it. Yep.
Blaming the refs. You always get a cliche out of Democrats. It's always a bumper sticker, right? It's never actually answering your question. It's always like whatever cliche is top of the tongue that may apply to some version of what it is that you're dealing with.
And that's exactly what Kamala did. You know, my aunt texted me after our debate show, and she was like, "It reminds me of something your grandfather used to say over and over again, that if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit."
That's good.
I like that. That's good.
It's so good. It's so good. All right, Dunks, what do we got?
We got Karen Robinette. Is it Robinette or
Is it
Robinette?
Robinette?
Well, it depends on.
Yeah, maybe she's
Robinette.
French.
If Karen is from the Midwest, it's Robinette.
Yeah.
If Karen is from the East or West, it may be Robinette.
Yeah.
No, it's
we'll see.
Karen's an American. It's Robinette. No, French Canadian.
Okay. We have a lot of listeners up north. Okay. We all knew ABC moderators were going to be actively on Kamala's side. Why is everybody so shocked? She lied through her teeth and depended fully on the moderator's help, but she performed well. How many Americans will fail to see through the act? That is the relevant question. I fear it will be too many.
It's a good fear, honestly, Karen, because as we said going into the debate, people are busy. People are doing stuff. This lady doesn't do interviews. She did one in Philadelphia that was the damnedest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. They edited it, by the way. They didn't show her asinine sort of stump speech answer to a very simple question. But you're just not going to get to see a lot of Kamala Harris. So the debate might be it. And if you were like I was when we watched the debate, you'd feel bad about it. You wouldn't feel good about, and you would feel like she actually maybe did her job. And then you go back through it, you listen to a Ruthless variety program, and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah,
she's worse than I thought before.
Yeah. Well, and then also, and some of the polls, and I think the New York Times Siena poll, bore this out as well. I think, there's still 30 to 40% of voters who want to know more about the specifics of what Kamala Harris would do as president.
Yeah, and they're never going to get it.
And I wonder, in the counterbalance to this prevent defense that her team is playing, where they limit her interviews and everything, if they risk that.
They do, but they have a better shot.
Defined.
They have a better shot with the risk.
Mm-hmm.
They got a better shot with the risk because if they put her actually out in front of people, carte blanche.
But in football, you play prevent defense a little too hard. They get in field goal range and they win by 3.
You just don't put her on an island and guard your number one receiver, which is what she's got now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, good points. Good points. All right, Smug, what do we got?
So they spelled her name DEGO7. So
right, now is your time to be racially sensitive?
Well, so this is Dago7. I don't think the young generation will be watching the debate. I also don't think the debate did much to change anyone's positions. Might have been different if the moderators had fact-checked, the liar Harris, but they absolutely were in the bag for her. And this is a tremendous point. Perfect example, like you were saying, Holmes, is that, most people are too busy to be on, or not as politically, inclined as our listeners to be on top of the news and what's happening. They see the debate, and that might be one of the only times that they tune in. And so when you have these examples, like all of our listeners now know the complete insane lie that Kamala Harris said that, like, well, right now, none of our troops are stationed in an active combat zone. When that wonderful video that came out of troops
amazing.
who are stationed overseas in an active combat zone, we're like, well, where the hell are we? As they're watching the debate. But she didn't get fact-checked on that. She didn't get fact-checked once. So, your average American hears that and they're like, oh, well, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You wonder. And if you don't read any subsequent coverage, or if you don't listen to the Ruthless Variety program, you wonder.
Yep.
You wonder. That's why you got to like and subscribe. That's why you got to get it out to all your friends. Make sure that everybody that has a YouTube at all, like if they ever go on YouTube, that they can't miss us.
Yep.
If you like and subscribe and you're friends with these people, they're going to have to see it at some point. Boy, a little education would do them some good. All right, you ready for some variety?
We need it. We need it.
We need a little variety.
We'll lighten it up.
So I'm a little confused about this.
Okay.
Wolf seems to be into it. Spaghetti seems to be into it.
Okay.
And it seems like it has, anytime they're into something, like I give them the benefit of the doubt because it seems like it could be something big here. The Guardian published a story. Entire Earth vibrated for 9 days after climate-triggered mega tsunami. Okay? And this was a landslide in Greenland that caused unprecedented seismic events that shows impact of global heating, say the scientists. And then they go on to talk with way too many words, in my view, about. But basically, what happened, there was a collapse of a 1,200 meter high mountain peak into a remote Dixon fjord.
Yeah, one of these fjords.
Fjord.
Good word.
Yeah. And it happened on the 16th of September a year ago in 2023. So obviously they're getting around to it now. It's the kind of thing that you can count on for scientists and those sort of things. Give us the up-to-date stuff. Yeah, no problem. A year from now, here it is. After melting, glacier below was no longer able to hold up its rock face. Okay, all right. I'm just going to go with that. I guess the glaciers hold up the rocks and not the rocks on the... I don't... Okay. It triggered an initial wave of 200 meters high and subsequent sloshing of water back and forth in the twisty fjord sent seismic waves through the planet for more than a week.
Yeah, we all noticed them, and that's why we're talking about it in 2024 when it happened in 2023. Everybody remembers this, right? Am I the only one that doesn't remember it? Seismic waves on a global scale.
Your
I guess I'm the
communities
only
have
one.
been ravaged by a...
Earth vibrated for so long we had to take the batteries out.
Yeah. Turn it on.
Like one of those kids' toys that won't shut up.
Yeah.
I just think, when it says something like earthquake caused by climate change, it's like the lengths that these people have to go to. When Al Gore had that movie come out where he was like, in 10 years, the world's going to be cooked and everyone's dead. And then it's been like 20 years. Like they keep being wrong about the prediction. So they have to keep moving the date up. And they were like, the ozone layer is going to be gone. Well, it turns out the ozone layer is fine. They're like, then it's global warming, but the earth started cooling in some parts. So they're like, climate change, so we can have it if it goes up or it goes down.
Right. Because it used to be global warming and now it's climate change. So literally anything can
if it goes up or down, it turns out I was right.
Anything that's a change. Like I read an article last week about how, scientists had predicted like the worst hurricane season in history. And that would be, of course, in their minds, evidence of climate change. Well, it's been one of the quietest hurricane seasons on record. And wouldn't you know it? That's also because of climate change.
Yeah, it's all because of climate change.
Yeah.
No question.
And you know what I think? So the beating...
You can't make it up.
Yeah, serious.
The beating heart of this scam, which has also made so many people deranged around the world, like Greta, the beating heart of this is because the priorities in the scientific and academic community have been so destroyed, where they're like, I know I can get a grant, and I can get millions of dollars to do research on made up bullshit from a Soros Foundation if I say Earth getting hotter. Oh, millions of dollars. If you're like, actually, it's one of the quietest seasons when we were told that climate change is responsible, you're not getting a penny. Sorry, buddy. You said the wrong thing.
Like, what would you like me to say? Well, we found a few people in here, including, I love this, Professor Anne Magenet, a landslide modeler at the Institut de Physique du Globe de Paris in France. And that's quite a title for this lady. What she says is such events will become more common as global temperatures continue to rise even more profoundly. For the first time, we can see quite clearly this event triggered by climate change caused a global vibration beneath all our feet, everywhere around the world. Those vibrations traveled from Greenland to Antarctica in less than it feels like the same thing. Greenland and Antarctica.
Trust us, they were there.
They were, yeah, well,
it was global.
2 places you'll never go. They were devastated. It's tough.
Santa Claus himself was.
So, but they've got all these people who are talking about this stuff, and they're saying as if they've just sort of indoctrinated a new generation of all. They have a whole segment that's called "It's Almost Shameful to Want to Have Children."
Yeah, the LA Times wrote an article saying that.
LA Times wrote an article. It's almost shameful to want to have children.
Yeah,
We've talked about that. We talked about this with Ramaswamy.
it's the climate cult is a death cult. They're like, you should be ashamed if you have kids because climate change will kill your children. Like, this is just pure derangement.
And the left have always talked to this way, and it was one of the things that J.D. Vance pointed out in that statement that of course everybody took out of context and wanted to say he was a terrible person for. But it's because there is a nihilism that runs through the left these days, where they are literally anti-humankind.
Yes,
they are against us.
Dude, wait, hold on. You got to hear this. Jade Sasser,
Oh boy.
which they quote in this LA Times piece, is an associate professor in the Department of Gender and Sexuality Studies at UC Riverside.
Renowned expert.
Okay. Her research explores the relationships between reproductive justice, women's health, and climate change. And she's the host.
It gets
this
better.
is like
it keeps going.
This is shit that we would make up
Yeah.
in our hard pivot. She's the host of a new podcast called Climate Anxiety and the Kid Question.
Come on.
This is actually not a made-up character.
I get it. All right, guys. I apologize for my skepticism at the front end of this. This is gold.
It's proof of that axiomatic statement. Those who can't do, teach.
Dude,
imagine she's not having a lot of sex.
Her book, that's the reason for the podcast, because it's Climate Anxiety and the Kid Question. Her book, the subtitle of it is Deciding Whether to Have Children in an Uncertain Future.
It's insanity.
What in the hell? American society feels more socially and politically polarized than ever. Is it right to bring another person into that? In 2021 and 2022, I conducted a series of interviews on this topic with millennials and members of Gen Z. All of them people of color. So, like, that matters with what you're talking. Like, how do all of a sudden, what color your skin matters in existential question. But anyway, some grew up in low-income families and neighborhoods, while others were from upper middle class. Some of them identify as queer, or their close family members and friends do, which shapes their sensitivity to discrimination against gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. Remember, that book that she's talking about is about climate change.
Yeah, right.
I was like, wait, what are we talking about again?
What in the hell? Dude, these people are crazy.
They're crazy.
We have created crazy people in this country.
Dude, I'm just like, I'm picturing it's the year 2040. There's an asteroid headed to Earth, and the president's address before the nation starts with a land acknowledgement. You know what I mean? Like that's these people. If these people want to be taken seriously, then be serious people, and they're not.
Dude, so they got a guy, Bobby. Bobby considers himself an environmentalist. He recently graduated from Southern California USC guy, right? So like you should be around some normal people. Well, not Bobby. His family is Guatemalan American. Here's what he had to say. Although he wanted to have children, his thoughts about fostering. That's a great lefty word, right? His thoughts about fostering arose from taking environmental studies classes. Going into college was the first time I was exposed to this information firsthand. And I realized for the first time it's not all rainbows and sunshine. I never learned before about things like food waste and carbon emissions. And that's when the gears started turning in my head about the future and what I wanted to do. What a poisonous environment. What a poisonous place. Even USC, it's a public university for crying out. Granted, it's in California. But like they've taught this kid who wanted to have kids and the American dream that because of food waste and carbon emissions, shut it down.
Right. And
shut it down.
And here you have the LA Times. If you want to write a story about the benefits of foster parenting, do that, because there are a lot of kids who need foster parents. If you're going to write a story about how you shouldn't have kids because of climate change, that is lunacy. Yep. Absolute lunacy. I mean, if you read through all of these comments, there's one person who's like, I got a degree in sustainability. What kind of degree is that? Like, I think it's evidence that college is way too expensive, and the degrees are in fields that are simply unemployable.
Yeah, how are you going to sustain an income, Bobby?
Well, that's the beautiful part is we're all going to pay for it.
Right.
That's why they're like, well, we have to do loan forgiveness. That's the problem. Like, dude, this is all just one big insane grift.
Here's Rosalind. With all the anti-black violence and the police violence against us, it just seems so unsafe. And I see so many of my friends who do have children that are constantly stressed because of this, especially the ones who have teenage boys who are taller than average. They send their kids out there just to spend time worrying about whether their child is going to be targeted or harassed in some way or potentially killed. I just don't have the disposition to put up with that kind of stress.
And that's what it's a good wrap on all of this. And I've discussed this on the show before, is the left needs to create this culture of anxiety and fear to be able to control this vast group of people who have opposing views, like Queers for Palestine. How do you keep all these people on the same side as you say, Donald Trump's a threat to democracy, the world is going to end.
Right.
Everything's an existential threat. You have to be careful. If you walk outside, you could get poisoned by the air. There's no point in having kids. They have to create this culture of anxiety and fear to keep their ducks in a row.
And the end result is somebody with a high-powered rifle outside Mar-a-Lago.
Dude.
Because if those are the stakes, and you really believe that, and you've been brainwashed to believe that.
This is the LA Times.
Yeah.
This is not
That's
some,
No.
4chan channel.
No,
this is something
mainstream for half of our country.
Yeah, it is
scary.
It lands on the doorstep.
Yeah.
It's completely ridiculous. So I know we've got a big interview. Stephen Moore, Ashbrook, this is sort of opened up your whole economic aperture, which a whole bunch of this election is going to be decided upon.
Yeah, the economy, I mean, we've talked about this on the show endlessly. The economy is one of, if not the biggest issue in this campaign, and for good reason. People are paying prices that are way too high. And as we've talked about a number of times with Smug, who's an expert on the economy, people have bills that they cannot pay. There was a Wall Street Journal article earlier, I think over the weekend, about how people are struggling to foot the bill of their credit cards and their house pay. It's outrageous, and you've talked about this for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem right now is that you see these numbers. We're at the highest credit card debt in the entire history of the world right now. Americans are in more credit card debt than ever before. Coincides with some of the highest interest rates you've got credit cards that are 35%, and people need it to pay for groceries and living expenses. Yeah. And this is the Bidenomics that we've been told. Well, this is actually good. Everything's going fine, and the Wall Street Journal goes into detail and talks about that. But the importance of focusing on the economy as an issue this election, that's the top of mind for voters, and Kamala is trying to say, oh, this is about joy,
Right.
Ignore the most important thing. And that's why we have to talk about it.
Yeah, and she won't give you any details about her economic plan. So Stephen Moore will tell you exactly what she's going to do. He's got a new book out called The Trump Economic Miracle. He talks about that a little bit. So let's get to that interview. I want to welcome to the program a very special guest. He is one of the foremost minds on the economy, and we have him here with us today, Steve Moore. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, John, great to be with you, and thanks for the kind words.
Well, this election is about multiple things, but the economy is probably number one on the minds of most people out there, and it's just not working very well for most middle-class Americans. And we talk a lot about how if Kamala wins, it's going to get worse. If Trump wins, it's going to get better. But I wonder if you could put some meat on the bone for us about specifically why it gets worse if Kamala wins.
Well, we have the book that's coming out in about a week called The Trump Economic Miracle that I wrote with Arthur Laffer. And by the way, Donald Trump wrote the foreword to it. And in that book, what we do, John, is really go through the records, and we compare the records of Trump versus Biden/Harris. And on about 18 of the 20 major economic measurements that you would judge the success or failure of a presidency, Trump does better than Biden. So they both have track records, and Americans should really ask the question, that old Ronald Reagan question, are you better off 4 years ago? And by the way, you may recall, John, that was a question that was asked to Kamala Harris that she never answered during the debate, because, of course, the answer is that most Americans are not better off, they're worse off. The average American work family has lost between $1,000 and $2,000 of income over the last 4 or 5 years. Almost 2/3 of Americans say the economy and the country are going in the wrong direction. Then the question is why? And I think it's the way I like to put it is that when it comes to the economy, Trump is on Venus and Kamala Harris is on Mars. I mean, you couldn't find two candidates that are more diametrically opposite. And we can go through some of those things, but I would just start by saying that if you were to impose a $4.5 trillion tax increase on the American economy, on capital gains, on unrealized capital gains, raise our business tax rate, raise the tax on dividends, nobody's going to invest in this country anymore. And we're going to be like California with all the money pouring out to other places where the capital and the businesses are treated better. So if we want to get back on the right track, and if the election is about the economy, I believe that Trump will win by a wide margin. If it's about other issues, if it's about January 6th or it's about abortion or other issues, then Trump may lose. But we want to talk about what we call the 3 I's, John. And those I's are immigration, right, which everyone out of control, inflation, which everyone agrees has been out of control, and incomes, real incomes for families that have fallen. And we want to just keep pressing those 3 I's.
Well, I think on the economy, Steve, you have done so much work. You've obviously got your book coming out. I wonder, if you watch her ads, for example, her ads acknowledge that the economy is not great. She's trying to pull that issue away from Trump, and I don't think anybody really buys it because they know that she's responsible for the situation that they're in. But one thing I don't think people really know just how terrible it will be if she wins. I mean, you mentioned $4.5 trillion in tax increases. That comes out of somebody's pocket, and it's not just businesses. It's regular people. And what we know about her administration with Joe Biden is that they promised at the beginning they wouldn't tax people who make under $400,000. And that is all obviously people have been seeing their taxes go up. So what are some taxes that you can look for under her if she were to win?
Well, first of all, the most vicious and unfair tax of all is inflation. Inflation is a tax. That's all it is. So folks, you're paying essentially a 20% sales tax every time you go to the grocery store, every time you go to the gas pump. Thank Joe Biden for raising the prices for that. And it didn't happen by accident. And by the way, there was no inflation when Trump was president. It was 1.5% when he left office. And why did that? I think it's important for people to understand why it happened. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because Kamala Harris came in, and the first thing, with Biden, the first thing that they did was they spent $5 trillion we don't have.
Right.
And that, how did we finance that $5 trillion of spending? We printed money. And it's as sure as the sun rising in the east and setting in the west, that if you spend that kind of money and print that kind of money, you're going to cause inflation. So I think that is a killer issue every time I even go to a grocery store and people see me and they say, why do you keep saying inflation's only 20%? Most people think that their prices are up 25 or 30 or 35 or 40%. Mortgage payments are up 50%. So that's caused what I call a middle class squeeze that is causing real anxiety among working class Americans.
Yeah. And Steve, Trump is working to put together plans to actually do something about helping middle class Americans. He wants to lower their costs. He also wants to reduce their taxes by continuing on with the tax cut that he passed in his first term. And Democrats' big argument against letting people keep more of what they earn is the deficit. Well, what we know from the first Trump tax cut is that it actually paid for itself. But if you listen to Democrats, they just blow right past that. And there was an interesting study that came out. I wonder if you saw it. Taxpayer Protection Alliance worked together with Ernst & Young, and they had a study that showed that the uncertainty about the extension of the Trump tax cuts is driving huge costs in the economy. It's preventing job growth, and it's doing a lot of damage that Democrats refuse to acknowledge.
Well, I did see that study, and I've written about it. It was quite eye-opening that so many businesses are concerned about the expiration of the Trump tax cuts. Because, look, as you probably know, Larry Kudlow and I and a couple of others helped draft that plan for Trump. And we're really proud of it. It worked. Every time I see President Trump, I say, Mr. President, that tax plan worked even better than we thought it would. Yeah. We had a huge number of jobs. Remember all the jobs that came in, all the capital that flowed back into the United States when we had, before Trump, we had the highest business tax rate in the world. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that.
A lot of Americans don't know that. No, I wish Trump had said that in the debate. We had the highest tax rate in the world. He knows that. That's why he did it. And then we lowered it to less than the average. And guess what? It was just like a flood of money coming back to America. Yeah. We did the small business tax cut. We provide essentially a 20% reduction in small business taxes because, small businesses pay taxes at the individual income tax rate. That had a big effect. We repatriated all of this capital in the United States. We one of the things that we did in that bill was do you remember the alternative minimum tax? Mm-hmm. Remember that?
I do.
A lot of people don't remember it because we essentially eliminated it.
Yeah. We
went from 8 million people paying the alternative minimum tax to like less than 500,000. Yeah. We eliminated the death tax for a huge number of Americans. Biden and Kamala Harris's plan would triple the number of people who would pay the hated death tax. I could go on and on. I could talk to you for an hour about our tax, but the fact is it worked just as we thought. We remember. I think every American kind of remembers this, that, before COVID, the economy was the best economy we ever had in my lifetime.
Yeah.
We were booming. Trump would have won a 40-state reelection landslide if it hadn't been for COVID. And so we got to get back to the policies that work. And my question for Kamala Harris, if I were debating her, and I hope Trump does this in the next debate, is just to turn to her and say, how are you going to grow this economy with a $4.5 trillion tax increase? There's never been a time in the history of the world where a country got rich by raising their taxes.
Yeah, and she would just melt into butter on that. She doesn't have an answer for that. She can't. She is terrible at extemporanea, and
I know. She said, "Oh, well, we're going to tax the rich." Guess what? The rich paid more. Do you know this? That after the Trump tax cut, the top 1%, their share of the tax burden went up. It didn't go down. The top 1% now pay almost half of the income tax. Did you know that? 1% pay half.
Yeah, Steve, the tax bill was a triumph. It was an absolute triumph, and it really did a lot for our economy. And the Democrats they want to undo all of that. They've already started trying to undo that in the first term under Biden. They want to further undo it under Harris, not just with tax policy, but by sending these 85,000 IRS agents after regular people out there. And, there are all kinds of rules that they're trying to come up with. There's a new rule that they're trying to use to go after partnerships. and working basically outside of the scope of what Congress has given them. But I wonder, there was this Chevron ruling earlier in the year out of the Supreme Court. I wonder if something like that will clamp down on the IRS.
Well, first of all, I mean, it is so outrageous that that Joe Biden, who worked in the Obama administration, obviously he was the vice president at that time. We know what happened in the Obama administration. They weaponized the IRS, just like their justice weapon. And what did they? You remember, right?
Oh,
They
yeah.
went after organizations. They went after, Republican donors. This is so sinister. It's maybe one of the most sinister things about the left today is they use the power of government to go after their enemies. It's like we're a third world country.
Yeah.
And if Kamala is in charge, she's going to, I'll bet you within 30 days, I'm going to get audited and you're going to get audited because
Right.
we're like Trump. No, I mean, this is a serious thing. We've seen what they've done in the Justice Department. We've seen what they've done in the State Department. We've seen what they've done in the IRS. Handing more power to these people would be an extraordinary mistake. And it's not America. We're not, like what Fidel Castro did when he came into Cuba. So adding $80,000 agents is unnecessary. We should just go to a flat tax. I'm a Steve Forbes guy. Remember the flat tax make it simple, a postcard return. Everybody pays their fair share, maybe 18, 19%, and then you're done with it. But they've created a 70,000 page internal revenue code. 70. Who does that benefit? It benefits everybody inside the swamp of Washington, but real Americans suffer from that.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. I wonder, like, thinking about what Trump would do in maybe like a TCJA 2.0. What do you think he comes in? If he wins, he comes into office. What would you expect in the first few days of the Trump administration from an economy?
We are going to hit the ground running. We're going to knock it out of the park. You're going to see a burst of prosperity. Like when you go to a big wedding anniversary or something and you shake up that bottle of champagne and you take the cork off of it, that's going to be the American economy. I guarantee you, we're so ready to hit the ground running. We're going to cancel almost every Biden executive order. We are going to make those tax cuts permanent within the first month of Trump's presidency, God willing, if he has the Republican Congress to do it. We're going to produce every single barrel of oil we can in the United States. So we're not sending money to Russia and China and, the OPEC countries. And the thing is, what I'm saying is right because he did it already. And I keep going back to this. This isn't, it was a leap of faith in 2016 because a lot of people didn't know that much about Trump, but he did what he said he was going to do. So you and I and all the voters know if he's elected, he will do exactly what he said he's going to do.
Yeah, no, and everybody's counting on that. And we really need to make sure. We talk a lot on the show about people doing everything they can to get out the vote for him and not take anything for granted because we all saw what happened in Europe over the summer where the right thought that they had a shot at winning and then all of a sudden the left started winning some of these elections. So we have to work very hard every day, and the Ruthless Variety Program is encouraging people to get out, and we're going to give a lot of information on how exactly everyone can help. But
tips, I think that's a great idea for working class people. My first job was working as a car parker, for basically, a small wage, but tips. And, sometimes if I did a good job, I'd walk away with $50 stashed in my pocket. That's when $50 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I love Trump is the president of the working class.
Mm-hmm.
What people need to realize, if you look at the profile of the Democratic Party today, it's the extremely wealthy people who love Biden and Harris. I don't know why, but they do because that's the base of their kind of. Let me put it like this: the cultural elite in the country love Kamala Harris and they love Joe Biden, and they have contempt for working class America. Don't you think?
No, that should really tell you something about where these people. Yeah, I'll tell you, Steve. The idea that Donald Trump, a billionaire who doesn't have to do what he's doing every day, doesn't have to basically have 2 assassination attempts against his life. The guy was playing golf on a Sunday. He could just live his life, and yet he's putting his own life on the line to help working people in this country. I think it says everything about who he is and about what he's trying to do. And So hopefully,
look
hopefully
at the
guy wins.
of the latest attempt to shoot and assassinate Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And here's another example of the complete incompetence of this administration. I mean, they can't keep our leaders safe.
Yeah.
And the head of the security, the Secret Service, well, he's not the sitting president. I mean, God, he should be fired in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, really outrageous. They wouldn't give civil service, Secret Service protection to RFK Jr., whose uncle and father were assassinated.
Yeah.
They abuse power, John.
Yeah. Yeah.
They use power of government to try to destroy their enemies. And I think everyone knows what I'm saying. That's why this idea that Trump is the danger to democracy.
Right. It's
open your eyes, folks. Look at what they're doing.
It's the complete opposite.
Yeah. This is called, for that, by the way, it's called projection.
Yeah.
Where you
that's right.
doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, Steve, really appreciate you being with us here today. And I'm going to pre-order your book. As soon as I get, I'm going to get online. But I wonder if people want to follow your work, where do they go?
Look, you can read this book in probably 2 nights and just go through the pictures and see, God, it was so much better under Trump. And I think people instinctively know that, but this provides people with the ammunition. The book is called The Trump Economic Miracle. And by the way, do you know who came up with that title?
Who?
Yes.
Trump?
We were going to call it Trumponomics 2.0. He said, I don't like that title. To call it Trump Economic Miracle. No, I like it.
That's fantastic. All right, Steve, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you, John. You do a great job, and I love working with you.
Thank you.
It's a great interview.
Yeah.
Important stuff.
Look, these are the things that people ultimately should decide.
Well, yeah, and if you're listening to this, I don't think you need to be persuaded, but I'm certain you have neighbors who are on the fence and thinking about this election, and the number one issue is the economy. So hopefully there's some good stuff in that interview for you to use.
Yeah. No question about it. Thank you for Stephen Moore for coming on in and clarifying an awful lot of that. Remember, our question of the day is, will Democrats and their media allies be successful at burying this assassination attempt the same way they did the first? And it opens up an awful lot more questions. Very fascinated to hear what it is that you have to say about all of that. You remember, you have to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like and subscribe if
you wish to opine.
That's exactly right. And while you're there, there's some great merch items, Michael.
Yeah.
Are your hands rested from your little trip?
I actually got to pull something up here.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. No, please pull away because as long as his hands are useful, we can get him to start knitting on another batch.
Well, I just want shout out to John Holmes.
Yeah.
A friend I grew up with, a good friend of my brother's, who texted me his daughter in a Ruthless hat.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And see that?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
great.
That is so good.
But he mentioned that we need car decals and onesies.
Oh,
good point.
We had some I think we had baby gear, but we didn't have onesies. So we got to get the team on that and my trusty hands.
Yeah, your trusty hands indeed.
Shout out to you, John Combs.
I love every minute of it. Well, we're getting darn near the end of this election cycle, and we're going to work every day until we hit a positive outcome. But with this, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thanks again to Stephen Moore, and thank you so much to all of our listeners. Remember, like and subscribe. It helps spread the word. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.